Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40's Sean Cunningham. What's going on, Sean?
Oh, everything. I'm thrilled to do this because it kind of gets me away from the phone for a little while, and we have a lot to talk about.
We do. And, of course, Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast and the Kings Herald. What's up, Brenden?
Not too much. Well, I guess there is a lot going on. Kings signed a couple guys, and looks like they got some shooting on this roster. Kind of exciting.
It looks like Brenden got a haircut.
Yeah. Shout out Will Griffith.
Oh yeah,
Many haircuts.
He's letting Kings Herald people cut his hair. Can you believe it?
Is that true?
Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah,
he
Will
is a barber. To be fair,
To be fair,
random.
All right.
And you paid for that, or no?
No comment.
Okay.
Oh,
Of course.
All right, so look, we've been gone since last Friday, so I'll just briefly discuss that with everyone there.
We had to allow time for Brenden to watch Swingers, and he finally delivers.
Wait,
It's true.
We think. Did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh.
I talked to Sean about it a little bit. I will say he dropped one reference, and I didn't pick it up, so maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention.
I immediately called him a freaking liar. I was like, dude, you just watched the movie. There's no chance you... Ugh.
I didn't think it was great, to
How
be
dare
honest. It was okay. It was okay.
God, you are just the worst.
You are the worst, Brenden.
Hustle was really good.
The homework assignments will continue.
That's right. And the funny thing is, I'll bring this up before we get to why we haven't podcasted forever. We had this moment. We had this moment on Saturday where, off the record, like after the Keegan Murray press conference, Sean and Brenden and I were all hanging around with Wes Wilcox and Monty McNair, and we actually had this moment where I thought it was hilarious, where Monty actually admitted that he makes him fun of Wes for the same thing that we make him fun of Brenden for. Wes, of course, he brought it up, and the way he brought it up was hilarious as well. Shout out to Wes Wilcox's kids. If you're listening in your bedrooms on your speakers right now, shout out to all of you. Thanks for listening, and make sure you give your dad all the good insight that we drop, because it's one of those deals. But I guess Wes Wilcox's kids listen to the podcast religiously. He said he has 3 of them. He has twins and another that's a little bit older, I think. They have 3 bedrooms, and he walks by their room and can hear either us or Deuce and Mo on loop all day long in their bedrooms, us talking about the Sacramento Kings.
I feel better that I don't cuss as much as Deuce and Mo do. So then knowing that children listen now, I'm going to try and be on my P's and Q's a little bit more. But whatever.
Anyway, it was a funny moment, and then at the same time, Wes said, yeah, they have this shtick where they mess with Brenden about his lack of movie knowledge, and Monty said, that's like me and you, right? Like how I'm making fun of you because you don't know movies. So I thought it was funny. It was like an honest moment we had with the guys where they were laughing, we were laughing, and we learned something new about all of each other, like in a group circle. And that's right before James tests positive for COVID. So that's the segue, and that's why we haven't been on the podcast. I tested again this morning, and like it takes about 30 seconds, and I got like a Sharpie black line still. So I'm still positive. Luckily, you cannot get the COVID through listening to a podcast, so we can actually have this conversation. But it's why I'm in a different room in the house. My wife has been absolutely spectacular. She's been taking care of me while I literally been locked. I've been quarantined in our master bedroom for I think this is day 7 since Saturday afternoon. So unfortunate. I'm doing okay. I'll be fine. But at the same time, I have had symptoms the whole time, and my voice has been pretty trashed. I think Monday, Tuesday, I sounded like Barry White. And now I can't hold up for very long before it starts to disintegrate on me.
And you learned a valuable lesson, right? You learned a valuable lesson.
What was my valuable lesson?
Under the weather, don't show up.
Okay, so I'll explain. Because I'm never that guy. Like I
Patient
don't.
zero.
Yeah, I'm not that guy. So we had media on Tuesday and Wednesday last week. On Tuesday, we were in a packed media room. On Thursday, it was more like free flowing. We're out in the practice facility. One of those 2 days, I got COVID because I hadn't gone anywhere else, and I didn't go anywhere else in the days leading up to that at all. And then Friday, I had a headache, but I get headaches. Everyone gets headaches. Didn't think too much about it. Saturday morning, I woke up early to get to the press conference, which was, 10 o'clock in the morning? But for me, I have to drive an hour to get there. And I woke up and I was a little gummed up. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I didn't even think about it. It's kind of been out of sight, out of mind because I haven't had COVID. And once I got to there to the Golden One Center where we were doing the press conference for Keegan Murray, I had got hot tea at Starbucks, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, I don't feel 100%. I feel a little off. And so I did keep my distance. The only thing is Becky, the new media person, she's head of corporate communications for the Sacramento Kings, literally just reached out and shook my hand, and I'm like, oh, no. And that's when I was like, oh, man, I didn't even really think about this until that moment. So I went over and hand sanitized. I told her to hand sanitize. I'm like, I just don't feel like 100%. Anyway, by the time I got home, I tested, and sure enough, I was positive. And I apologize to everyone. I called everyone. If Deuce is listening, since you ghosted me all week, bro, sorry. I didn't tell you, but I got the COVID. And that's on you. I called you 3 times. I texted you. You didn't get back to me. So hopefully you and Morgan are safe. But that's the story. And again, I hate being patient one, but someone else is patient one on Tuesday or Thursday when I got it from a media session. So I guess I should stop complaining about not having any media sessions, because then you can just get the COVID, I guess. Right. I wonder what
it looked like, by the way, when you go, I've been feeling under the weather, and then Becky and I both just, whoa, dude, and we just like you just farted or something. Like it was really animated.
It was animated. It wasn't like I didn't feel bad. Like but the weather's been changing nonstop. The allergies are there. I didn't feel like I wasn't coughing. I wasn't sneezing. I just felt a little gummed up. And so anyway, I apologize to everyone. I text everyone, called everyone. That it is what it is. I feel bad if anyone got it from me. So that's the story of why we haven't podcasted all week. And so again, we'll just get back to the basics then. If you're watching right now, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on things like Apple or Spotify or any of those things, give us a rating and a review. Those things always help us. Outside of that, jump on board with the Kings Beat. We have been growing so crazy because of free agency and the draft and everything else. Has been super exciting to watch. I think the last podcast where I think people thought I melted down, but we did well over 5,000 watches on YouTube. Super excited about that. And maybe it's good that we took a couple of days to clear our heads and get back to basics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The Kings did what they could to keep you in high spirits. People definitely had what I would say is pretty funny reactions to last episode. We were having a good time kind of reading through some of those. One of my favorites that is pretty fitting at this point, James, people were talking about you looking like Kevin Huerter, and that's what's on the roster now. So I think it's pretty fitting.
They didn't trade him, but someone actually, I want to give this guy credit because I don't know if you guys saw this. He put in my mentions, he says, "Gone is the big ragu and welcome to Red Velvet," and they use the Drake. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of hard. Probably not. Anyway,
yeah, we got
Big
it.
Ragu, Red Velvet, and it's Drake just kind of being yeah. So, yeah, 2 ginger for ginger in 2 consecutive days. That'll work.
That's all right. Okay, so let's just start there. So the Sacramento Kings just traded on Friday morning. They traded Mo Harkless, Justin Holiday. It's a pretty protected 2024 first round pick. The protections are 2024. It's lottery protected 2026. It is top 12 and
no
2000
24. Lottery protected 24, top 12 25, and top 10 26.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that does mean, and then if it does not convey in 2026, then it dissolves into 2 second-round picks. This does mean that the Sacramento Kings cannot trade their first-round pick until 2028. So they basically J.J. Hickson themselves in this deal. What do you guys think? What's your initial reaction? I mean, personally, I really like Kevin Huerter as a shooter. He's on a 4-year, $65 million deal that just starts this year, and he's locked up long term. Sort of friendly contract, not spectacular contract, but what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I like Kevin Huerter. I'm shocked that he's still 23 years old. I did think he was a little bit older than that, but the numbers he was putting up last year, I thought were pretty solid with 12 points and 45% from the field, the 38.9% from three on about 5.6 per game is pretty standout. Malik Monk, that we'll talk about later, him and Huerter and Keegan Murray, like you're really improving the spacing on this roster, which was much needed. I like Kevin Huerter kind of as a secondary playmaker as well. He's very reminiscent in my mind of Bogdan Bogdanovic, kind of fitting coming from that Atlanta roster. And I think that Huerter is a little bit of a better defender than maybe some would assume. I don't know that I'm viewing him as somebody that's a difference maker on the defensive end or anything like that, but I think that it was a pretty low starting point. I think he's a better option than Justin Holiday was or than Terrence Davis would have been. And they were having him guard point of attack an okay amount in Atlanta with Trae Young hiding off the ball a little bit. That I don't know he's the most ideal option, but that might be something that Sacramento tries to do. I really like him as a complementary piece, and to have him for that additional 4 years at just 23 years old, I don't mind the value as long as that pick isn't locked up for all too long.
Yeah, I mean, Brennan nailed it, and I agree with everything you say. Much like, I know we'll get to Malik Monk in a minute, but to add the shooting you just did and two really kind of underrated playmakers for a team that sorely needed playmaking, I think is a huge, huge win. I think the Kings are going to value Kevin Huerter, and you can probably say the same about Malik Monk, but I think they're going to value them maybe more than what their previous teams did. Certainly in the certainly in the Malik Monk situation, but Kevin Huerter comes over, and I think it checks a lot of boxes for him, man. And it is kind of funny how we can always look back of how it just never seems to fail. If a player, kind of torches you, especially in your own building, like teams remember that. And if you remember that game, Atlanta here in Sacramento, 25-11, Huerter just absolutely destroyed the Kings in that one game here last year. And I expected him to be a little bit more of a factor in the playoffs in that first round. I think it was the first round with Miami, yeah. Because I remember him being much more of a factor in the previous year. But this past year, he was kind of like a little bit of a non-factor in the playoffs. But the good news is he brings a lot of playoff experience. I mean, he's got like 23 games under his belt. So for a team that has aspirations of, snapping a 16-season playoff drought, getting people that have played there and are at such a young age as well, I think that's a big get for them. So the money part doesn't bother me, and I know, James, like we were talking about the handlebars I always call them handlebars, the protections that are on draft picks. I'm not worried about it. 2024, this team better not be in the lottery, and I think you won't really have to worry about your first round pick and not being able to move it. I think this pick will be gone. I think it'll belong to Atlanta in 2024 if everything goes right, and everything should go right. I mean, you've got 2 years with Domantas Sabonis. You got to make it work, and this is surrounding him with the necessary talent. You knew what they needed. You added some wing depth. You've added some shooting. You've added some playmaking. Defense, I think, is there with Huerter for the most part. I think he's a pretty good rebounder as well as at his position. We can certainly get into what the Malik Monk thing looks like, but they're definitely adding pieces, and that's why I think some people thought John Collins might be a part of this. I think some people were probably thinking I think they get a little too emotional. I think a lot of people learn just take it day to day. A lot can change from day to day, whether it be the draft, not extending a qualifying offer to Dante DiVincenzo, and then a day later you've got somebody like Malik Monk, and then a day later you've got a trade where you send two pieces that really weren't really valued by the organization, and your biggest asset is just that first round pick. So you've got a week where a lot has progressed, and I think a lot of Kings fans have gone through the emotions of it all, head scratchers, and that's why I caution. Like I was on radio this morning with our buddy Carmichael Dave, and they were saying, "Is Malik Monk will he be is he going to be the starter?" And I was kind of like, probably not. You got a lot of offseason left, and the Kevin Huerter thing with the John Collins, it seems like they were being dangled. It was as a tandem. Certainly there was interest, but I can tell you guys just kind of how fun my phone has been. Late last night is when the Huerter thing really kind of crept up on my radar as something that was not attached to John Collins and something like that was looking like it's its own deal. And I actually was late for my radio hit because I was on the phone about this deal. Like it was looking like it was going to come to fruition. I was concerned it wouldn't get done because of the first round pick, and I didn't know that they would do that. Luckily, you then see the protections, and it makes sense. But I had heard that it was going to be something like next year's first round pick. So to see it kind of come off in the wash, this is a deal that I think the front office should be very, very excited about. I think Kings fans should be excited about, and I think they should be excited as you look at just what they've added in the past 2 days. I mean, you talk about the free agency pickup of Malik Monk, and then with this trade, and then let's face it, you're not done yet. You've got plenty of offseason left.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at Huerter, the guy that he kind of like, I'm not going to compare him because I mean one of them is a surefire Hall of Famer, but he reminds me a little bit of Klay Thompson, sort of the poor man's Klay. Maybe he's
Very
he's not
poor.
well, yeah, but he's not the great shooter, and he isn't quite
like-
the defensive player, but.
Kicking
No, but
the
I mean
can
that's
down the road poor.
No, I mean that's a style of player, and I'll point out that when you play in a system like Atlanta's had the last couple of years, everyone's shots were hurt. Everyone's like sheer volume of shots, because we've seen, like if you go to John Collins, he was down 3 shots per game over the last 2 years. That's why he's averaging 16.5 as opposed to 20. It's because he's just not getting the sheer volume. They had a bunch of players come up together, the Hunters and the Huerter, but they also added Bogdanovich. They added Gallinari. All of a sudden, they added all these offensive weapons, and people's shots went down. I think Huerter's going to have an opportunity to be a lot better than a guy who averages 12 points a game in Sacramento. Can he average 20? I don't know. But what I do know is that he can average a lot more than 12, and it's just because he should get a larger volume of shots in Sacramento. So, again, I'm not comparing him fully, but he is sort of a poor man. He's a guy that can shoot the three really well. He's better defensively. He's not a guy who,
he's not better
creates for
defensively than
everyone.
Klay Thompson. Like
Oh,
Klay
no, he's not
Thompson
better
is-
defensively.
No. Like that. That's why I'm cringing at what you said, only because like Klay Thompson having even a poor man, like I know people think of shooting, but you have to remember Klay Thompson was a shutdown elite defender, and probably still is for the most part. And yeah, I get what you're saying on the offensive end, and I can kind of see that poor man variety. But I mean, knowing that this is a two-way basketball, like no, I could think of a couple different comparisons, but that ain't it. Like Klay is Klay would probably sock you in the jaw for that.
No, but I mean, look, these things are about opportunity. A lot of it is
Sure.
about opportunity, and I think that like if you put him in the right system, you put him in the right under the right coach, that you're going to see, some solid defense. You're going to see a guy who does a lot of the things that Klay does. He's going to be a catch and shoot guy. He's going to move off the ball a lot.
Yeah.
He's going to do those things that Klay does. He's just not going to do it at the same level. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, I think he's a perfect fit next to De'Aaron Fox. And to be honest, I think he's a much better fit than the next guy that we'll talk about, which is, of course, Malik Monk. Sacramento Kings.
Real quick on Huerter. What do you guys make of them not including the 2023 pick? Why do you think it was 2024 and afterwards?
Because it's very possible they're in the lottery. I think it's going to be I think you don't want to give up first round picks as it is. I mean, those are your assets, but I think they project to be better by 2024 than they do next year. Because
and the 2023 draft
coach.
is the 2023 draft is nuts.
Correct.
It's nuts. You're not gonna. No one should be trading a 2023 pick at all.
No, you're right, Jane, and that's probably the biggest. That's the biggest bullet point for sure. You're right there, and going back to Huerter a minute, like you mentioned the catch and shoot stuff, but I think he's really, really crafty, like coming off curls, pin downs, like everything he does offensively can be so good because when you look at what you had in Buddy Hield, when he's catch and shoot, it's fantastic, right? Elite shooter, all that stuff. You got that range, but everyone obviously cringed when Buddy would put the ball on the deck, right? Or even take a dribble, whatever. And then it's like, okay, now we're in no man's land. We're in a time warp. Herter's different, man, and he gets a shot off high and quick. I like that a lot, and I think that's going to be really, really advantageous for them. I think they've got. I think it provides, I love the Monty McNair word optionality. I think it provides a lot of optionality not only for Mike Brown, but just with this offseason. Now that you have two shooters like this, and again, shooters at a premium in the league, I think it makes your offseason even more, a little bit, I think it just opens up a lot more possibilities now as well. Things that maybe you didn't consider before. And, I know we'll kind of get into some kick the tires on some of the things that are out there, but I think they're in a good spot right now. I think if you're Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox, you got to feel like coming out of your draft and coming out of what you've done. I think you're pretty proud of what you've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that this was like, again, I kind of look at it a little bit like the draft, a little bit like free agency, a little. I think all three, the way to improve your team is the three mechanisms, of course: trading, free agency, and of course a draft. I thought coming out of the draft that the Kings improved themselves, but they didn't improve themselves in a way that I thought they could have. Right? So they didn't add anything else, and they didn't also use that as an opportunity to either clear cap space, pick up another pick. Clear up some of their roster congestion, which they still have. That was my biggest concern coming out of the draft, is that Keegan Murray is fine and he's going to be a starter for you for a decade, but could you have done more to, change your roster on draft night? And we get to the first day of free agency and it's super clear the Kings have so limited opportunity in free agency, not just because they're Sacramento, but because they don't have any cap space.
Right.
All they had was a mid-level and the biannual exception. They could still use a biannual, but we'll get to that later. But again, you didn't do your work on draft night to clear up space or to give yourself some opportunities in free agency. You get to free agency and it's a little tight. Now you get to your first trade, and your first trade, you give up 5 years of first-round picks. So basically you can't trade your first-round pick for the next 5 years. So again, I think every step here, I like what they do. I like Malik Monk. I like Huerter. I like Keegan Murray. But I feel like they just keep putting shackles on themselves, if that makes sense. Like the ability to do more after each of these moves is severely limited because of what it costs to do the moves. And so I think it's an interesting way that they're building out the roster here. And I would hope that they still have another substantial play here with regards to Harrison Barnes and what they're going to do with that situation. But again, how much can you move at this point? Because you just gave up your first round pick until 2028, or the opportunity to trade your first round pick. So I think it adds like some elements of intrigue to what's happening.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I like that they've committed to win now. I think without sacrificing too much of their future, like that pick could be locked up for a little while, but it's only one pick they're going to end up giving up. There's a chance it's just gone in 24, and then after that they have the future ones to work with. And the two guys that they got both have additional upside to them, like being 23 and 24 years old, while also improving the roster in the immediate, I think is pretty impressive. This is also the first time they've traded a first-round pick since they've drafted De'Aaron Fox. I don't know what the last first they traded, but ever since they've had Fox, they have not traded a first-round pick, and they've been talking about wanting to win now, but haven't really acted like it in my mind. So I think that this is them committing to that, and I just like that they're fully committing to doing that, to being better next year without mortgaging too much of the future. Again, 23 and 24 years old with Monk and Huerter. I think there's more intriguing upside between them. I do think that there still needs to be more, and I look at Harrison Barnes and Rashawn Holmes as the assets that they still have to work with. Is there anything that they can still flip those guys and make something work there? But I like that they are committing to making it happen right now, and I'm still worried about maybe what the long-term construction of this team is and the ceiling of it, but at very least, like, I feel good that they're going to be competent next year, and I kind of come around to thinking there's a lot of value of getting this stink of being an organization that everybody just looks down on, and if you can just be competent for a couple years in a row, that maybe you can start to scratch that, and teams, free agents will start to really look in your direction. You'll be able to get guys in there for the draft. So I'm pretty excited, actually, to watch games next year, because I think they're going to be competent, not honestly a laughing stock like they have been.
It's well said.
Yeah,
man.
Sean.
I can't argue with anything you just said. I think that's well said.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll get to the Malik Monk deal. Malik Monk, of course, was signed to a 2-year, $19 million deal. Again, Monk is a guy who has a skill set. I mean, he's a very good shooter. He's a very good scorer overall. He's athletic. I think the biggest thing with Monk is that he comes in with a pre-existing relationship with De'Aaron Fox. They were college teammates. They were the backcourt at Kentucky. And I think that they've got a big pairing. I like what they can bring together. How much they're going to play together will be in question, because whether Monk is a starter or he's coming off the bench, I think is a huge question mark for this team. Who's going to win that job? Can Huerter slide over and play the 3? And you're going to have to figure out. There's going to be some competition here. But Monk played really well last year in LA after 4 lackluster seasons in Charlotte, coming out of the draft. I thought he really turned the corner, and he showed that he can be an NBA player last year. So in one fell swoop, not only do you weaken the Los Angeles Lakers by taking away one of their better shooters when they don't have any shooters anyways, but you also add a guy who, at his age, he's 24, has a potential to grow and to be something better than he has been, and potentially grow into whether it's a starter, which at 6'3", I'm a little leery on him as a starter, but as a main rotational player, I'm not leery. I think he's going to put up points. He's going to be solid. I think he can do a lot of what Terrence Davis does, but to be honest with you, he's a little bit more concise with it and a little less erratic. But Sean, what are your thoughts on Malik Monk?
Yeah, I like it. Another guy who's a little bit, like I mentioned it before, a little bit more than a playmaker than people give him credit for. I like the fact that he's able to play with LeBron James for a year. I like the fact that he's been able to kind of seemingly get over some of the hurdles that that he struggled with earlier in his NBA career, even off the court. I think he's learned and grown from a lot of things. I like the fact that he's got something to prove, and he's coming off his finest NBA season, and it was a bit of a shit show in LA, as we all know. So to see him, I mean, I do wonder the fit with Terrence Davis, because two of these guys are extremely streaky. Terrence obviously has some deficiencies holding onto the ball and turnovers and things of that nature, but both of them can really catch fire and then lose it really, really quickly. I love his athleticism. I think the guy's very bouncy. I went back and remembered some of the footage of one of the Laker games here. He's throwing the ball off the backboard to LeBron for a dunk on a break. He's a very, very exciting player. And I think if this is what it takes to get Fox out of a rut sometimes, or to get him to try to keep the foot on the pedal more so, and just kind of get that spark back for him, I think that's a good thing. I think the Kings were well aware that they wanted to give Fox somebody that he is comfortable with. I mean, you go back to just when they traded Justin Jackson. Remember, that was one of his best friends. And so getting somebody that he's really connected to in the locker room, I think matters. I really do. I think you can never take things like that for granted. So it is good. I'm not a big fan of him defensively, but like you mentioned, James, like I think it helps when he plays with better defenders. And I think if obviously the Kings don't have that yet, but I think it'll be a process. And I think Mike Brown, he's young enough to where Mike Brown might be able to bring something out of him. I'm not saying he's going to be a lockdown defender, but if you can be a better team defender, I think that would be an outstanding. I know the stats don't necessarily line up with what you see on tape, but I do see him being a willing defender and a player who doesn't get lazy. So that is a good thing. Over the course of 82, we'll see what that looks like. And that's another thing, man. Like, incredibly durable player for the most part. It's both these guys. You don't have these like long injury streaks or anything like that. So durability in the NBA is paramount. So I like the additions of both of these players as a collective more so than individual. I think having both of them together, Huerter and Monk, I'm talking about, coming in brand new, addressing areas of need, which is wing depth and shooting. I think that, and like I mentioned, some underlying playmaking that doesn't just leap off the page, but I don't think people give them enough credit for what they do. So I think together, both of these guys address a lot of needs, and I think it'll be something that not only Kings fans will be excited about. This team is going to be instantly more fun.
I'm with Sean. I think that the secondary playmaking and the connective pieces that these guys are is really intriguing to me as just the right complementary pieces that can keep the ball flowing. Maybe there's a little bit of them running a pick and roll here and there, and maybe there's some potential for that with these guys, and both obviously really good three-point shooters. I mean, Monk knocking down 39.1% of almost 6 threes per game last year. Both of them ended up with 41.9% on catch-and-shoot threes last year, which there were players on Sacramento's roster last year that were getting completely left alone from the perimeter, and it just screwed up the spacing. And that was, saw it with Marvin Bagley, Chimezie Metu, honestly, Davion Mitchell sometimes. And these guys, Monk and Huerter, are players that nobody's going to be able to leave alone on the perimeter, and that alone has a lot of value when you're talking about Fox and Sabonis. Mike Brown highlighted paint touches when we talked to him in his introductory presser, and it's a lot easier for Fox to be able to drive into the paint when he has that spacing, or for Sabonis to have effective post-ups when he has that sort of spacing. And these smart players that are decent cutters as well and okay finishers. I had forgotten exactly how bouncy Malik Monk was. I think that, Fox, Monk, Sabonis, and Murray in transition is going to lead to some interesting highlights, and I think that transition is going to be pretty exciting in Sacramento for sure. I like Monk. I do think that he's potentially a little bit repetitive with Terrence Davis, but it's also not bad to have a couple of those guys. I think that Monk has shown more. I think that you can rely on Monk a little bit more than I feel like you can say that for Terrence Davis right now. And the defense is, I think, better than I initially thought, but I still have worries a little bit there. I think if Fox and Monk are playing together defensively, as a backcourt, that it means De'Aaron Fox is going to have to be pretty locked in on that end and accepting a little bit of the challenge there. And I think Fox has potential to be better, but in my mind, defensively, as a backcourt, it probably makes more sense to have Huerter starting alongside him. But also, if HB gets moved, I guess they'd have another big piece in return, ideally, if HB were to get moved. But maybe like Monk and Huerter are starting together, and then someone else is at the 4. I don't know. Could be intriguing. I think that both of these guys, the spacing and just being a connective piece on offense that aren't going to kill you on defense is valuable and better than what I thought Sacramento could get.
Yeah, so I dug into Monk's defensive stats on Synergy yesterday. I was shocked, and to be honest, there's a line that I finished, I'll start there. None of these stats listed above are anywhere near Monk's career numbers. Either light bulb went off in his 5th NBA season, or the rotations he played in with the Lakers surrounded him with players who helped mask some of his weaknesses. He ranks in the 75th percentile, holding his opponent to just .884 points per possession. 62nd percentile in the pick and roll ball against ball handler. Excellent. 90th percentile against handoffs. Very good. He was in the 70th percentile off of screens, and good at the 61st percentile against isolation. He also earned an excellent mark, holding his opponents to just 698 on jump shots off the dribble, 0.698 points per possession. And that was on 182 opportunities. And he was also good against the three. He finished in the 81st percentile defending the three, allowing just 0.943 points per possession. These are really good stats, but I don't know. That's not something that he did any time in his career before that, before he got to the Lakers. And so I'm a little leery on claiming that that's who he will be. Just like I have a tough time, saying that Huerter couldn't improve greatly on the defensive end when he's not playing against the toughest guard on the other team, when he's not covering for Trae Young. So I think we can see some of these guys make like marked improvements. And we could also see some guys take some steps back from what we've seen. I think the biggest piece, you guys kept mentioning it, is just the floor spacing. This team they had no scorers. They had no spacing. And having adding two guys, and then if you add Keegan to that mix, that's three guys. All of them can space the floor. All of them can hit the three ball. We're seeing Sabonis working with the shot doctor nonstop, trying to space the floor as well. All of these are little elements that can actually help like the overall flow of offense in Sacramento. And whether it all works or not, I think is going to be in question. I think whether it all works in year one is going to be in question. But I do like the additions and what they're doing so far. Let's get to Tuesday overreactions, even though it's Friday, because Sean loves this.
I do.
Did the Kings screw up with the Donte DiVincenzo situation? It's the strangest thing. I'll just start here. They matched. They picked up the contract on Trey Lyles on Tuesday. We broke that news. We get to, what was it, Wednesday? We broke that news again about DiVincenzo. They just decided not to pick up his qualifying offer. And to me, it's really strange because, first of all, they still have the cap hold. They haven't rescinded his rights. They still have Larry Bird rights to him. They can still sign him. At this point, it seems extremely slim opportunity to do that. They could still sign and trade him as well. But it just seemed like a strange move because you walk into free agency with not enough cap space, so the only thing you actually have to use is the MLE and the biannual exception, right? That's it. And you had DiVincenzo. So you could have signed DiVincenzo and still had those two pieces. Now you don't. Now you don't have that opportunity. At least you don't have the right of first refusal by extending a qualifying offer. Just what was your guys' take on that? Because I know, Sean, you tweeted out that there's still some interest from the Kings. I don't think that that's the case on the other side.
No, I can almost assure you it's not the case on the other side.
Yeah, it's not on the other side. Just
no.
But Christmas came early for Donte DiVincenzo's camp because by not picking up his qualifying offer, they let him go out into free agency without this thing hanging over their head that some other team could match. And not only can some other team match, but they have days to match. So if you extend a qualifying offer, you got to wait. And then if they decide to match, then you've held on to your cap. They've eaten your cap space for a few days and kind of screwed you over.
Right.
And then you got to go back into the free agent market after players are already gone. So I just takeaway, Sean.
Well, I mean, look, it is an overreaction. They did not screw that up. I point out to people just because you famously traded for him twice doesn't mean he's part of your future going forward. I think you're just trying to collect assets and you're trying to set yourself up for your future. I think they're very comfortable with Donte DiVincenzo being part of that future. I think the price of what they were looking like was more than what they were willing to gamble. Also knowing that you can go all the way back to draft day, James. Like this trade didn't just get pulled off in one day. This is something that would date back to draft day. These are conversations that go on, and even before that. So a lot of things take time to materialize. Sometimes you have third and fourth teams that are involved in trades as well. But as it pertains to Donte DiVincenzo, like, it's all part of the calculus. Like, I think it's a little similar to Isaiah Thomas. I mean, first of all, as I said in previous podcasts, like, restricted free agency is kind of ugly unless you're like a superstar player. And with respect to the big Ragu, he is not a superstar player. But
He's not.
No, he's not. But I think he's a damn good player. And I think the Kings still value him. But at the same time, it's like, no, restricted free agency is designed for you to go out and find your deal and get your deal. And they'll allow you to do that if they extend the qualifying offer. But if you have this belief that we got a full mid-level and you've got this contract and all these things, like, great. Like, that's already more than what the Kings are probably willing to do, as what we've seen in the past few days, but what they've added to their team in Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter. Now your team looks a little bit different. And all the while, it doesn't change what you're thinking about DiVincenzo. You have a number in mind. So the reason I say it reminds me of Isaiah Thomas is everything I was hearing about Isaiah Thomas, and then there was, they had a number in mind that was not this $9 to $12 million deal that was reported allegedly with Detroit that never came to fruition. And the minute we saw that, we're like, there's no way that that's on the table, because if it was, you would have taken it. You would have absolutely signed an offer sheet and you would have done it. And it never happened. It never came to fruition. And ideas that you were worth this money that the market was telling you were worth, were the Kings bet against it. And so, yes, and famously he was signed and traded to Phoenix for Alex Oriaki, who never became a King, but the money was significantly less. And if you remember back at that time, I was like, well, gosh, at the money that they got, I kind of wanted to see it. They just brought in Darren Collison. Like, that would have been kind of a neat thing to see. Now, fast forward to here we are in 2022 with Donte DiVincenzo. It's possible he can still get a full mid-level. It's possible he can find the money he's looking for. Hasn't happened yet. I still think there's money that if the Kings were trying to kick some tires, they could go for it. It won't happen. It won't happen with from his people's side. But I think that the money that the Kings are willing to do was kind of flew in the face for what they were looking for, what his people were looking for. So I like the addition of Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter better than the Donte DiVincenzo fit on Sacramento. Now, clearly, the offseason isn't done, and he hasn't signed yet, so things can change very, very quickly. So it is Christmas, James. He can go out and get his deal and not have to be tied to Sacramento and wonder if he has to come back there. So I think they not only did, Donte DiVincenzo a big favor, I think they did CAA a huge favor as well, his agency. So that's things that people will remember, and that's I think they did him a big favor. And if you look at the way people were probably feeling on the first day of free agency, or the day before first day of free agency, where they didn't extend him a qualifying offer, to where you are now, I think you're thinking Donte DiVincenzo who?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to your comparison. First of all, like, I like Donte DiVincenzo, but he ain't no Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah
Right.
Thomas got a 3-year, $21 million deal. The fact that Pete D'Alessandro and Chris Mullin decided not to match that was really one of the most ridiculously stupid decisions that I've ever, just on a pure basketball decision. It was so ignorant, it was crazy. They had convinced themselves.
Yeah, if you remember, just to cut you off real quickly, when I mentioned they
had convinced themselves that he's starter.
Yeah, the $9 to $12 million was per year in the report, not 7, which is what it's 6 to 7, which it would have factored out with for the 321. So
yeah,
that was like the money when he ended up going to Phoenix was like, well, that's a deal you probably should have kept him then. Like, that's a deal you could have done even with Darren Collison.
Yeah, I mean their mark was $5 million a year. That's what they didn't want to pay over 5. I mean, to be honest, again, we were dealing with people who literally had such poor understanding of basketball talent, in my opinion. I mean, it was just they were willing to spend what was it, a 3-year $28 million deal the year before on Carl Landry, who had never been a starting player in the NBA, and they were willing to pay that money for him. But when Isaiah Thomas came around, they weren't able to match a 3-year 21. I mean, it made no sense at all, especially since they kept saying he's not a starter, and we kept saying, well, he's your starter. He averaged 20 points and 7 assists a game.
Yeah.
Like, you can say he's not a starter all you want, but hey, dumbass, like, he started the whole season for you.
Get him.
Like, that to me, that was one of the worst like basketball understanding plays I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, it's just a lack of like ability to evaluate talent. Like, that's what it came down to. Like, it was a stunning pick to get him in the last pick in the draft. He outplayed. He was the best feel-good story ever. And then to dump him for Alex Oriaki and a trade exception that you never actually used, that's why you're no longer a GM in the league.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, it's like you could say that. I mean, we could put that up there as one of the top 5 all-time bad moves in the last 15 years in Kings basketball. I mean, I don't think it reaches drafting Marvin Bagley at number 2.
No,
but it's not that far below it.
But yeah, and before Brendan weighs in on the overreaction, which is, again, I just throw that out there for what the reports were of his people thinking the pie in the sky of $9 to $12 million a year. It's like, no way. Like you just called the bluff, and then you settle at a contract that's significantly less. So I that's the part that I think is the comparison. But what do you think, Brendan? I mean, the overreaction, did they F that up?
I really liked Dante. I think he's the type of player that Sacramento needs. I think that getting Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter make it easier to forget about Dante DiVincenzo. But in my mind, like, he's a solid defender. He hits his open shots. I think he's a good connector when it comes to moving the ball offensively. He definitely is not without his weaknesses, but to me, like, give yourself the option to match the deal. But if it seems like that relationship got pretty soured, and the only way that I can like logically present it to myself is, I guess, doing the agency a favor and feeling like they weren't going to bring him back anyways. And they did go out and get other guys that fill that role to make it easier to forget about it. So it's hard to complain after the Monk and Huerter acquisitions, but I thought it was a poor way to deal with that.
Who? Yeah, by who? By the Kings?
I thought they should have extended the qualifying offer and given themselves the opportunity to match, just see what he gets. And I still think he's one of those like connecting pieces that would be valuable on this roster. But,
I think it's interesting because there was no downside. You can withdraw the qualifying offer at any time. And if Dante DiVincenzo said, all right, fine, I'll play for $6.6 million. I'll play for the qualifying offer this year, and I'll become an unrestricted free agent next year. Well, that doesn't hurt the Kings. They still could have done everything that they did afterwards. They would have gone over the cap, and they would have gone into the range of, like, you have to watch some of your moves. But let's be honest. It's like the luxury tax at this point is like $152 million this year. The Kings aren't anywhere near that. They're, even after all the trades that they've done, they're nowhere near the luxury tax. Again, what did they trade? They traded $6.3 million in Justin Holiday and 4.6 in Mo Harkless for Huerter. They almost matched salary. They took on maybe like $1.5 million, $2 million in that deal. But they still are so far under the luxury tax that it's crazy. So again, that would be my point: is that it wouldn't hurt you even if he did accept a qualifying offer, and you have a week or two to pull back the qualifying offer. You can just rescind the qualifying offer. They still hold his rights. I mean, I think it's just an interesting way that they did this, and the fact that they waited all the way up until the last minute was kind of interesting. It was like most of the free agents out there already had their qualifying offers the day before, and the Kings didn't do it.
just to jump in there real quick, I think a lot of that was dependent upon the deals that you were making.
Yeah, what they thought they had ahead of them. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So they're still playing the long game. And again, things have a funny way of working out. And you allowed him now to go to not only find that deal, but to do so without the handlebars of, matching and bringing him back. If all of a sudden, the dust clears and it's like, well, I don't have that deal I thought I might have. And Sacramento still has the most money and maybe they've done another move or two. Again, like things can play out in a funny way. He may, again, I think to the point where it's like at the end of the day, you're going to go with what the most money is possible. And if you got your bluff called, maybe that's what happened. But maybe maybe he's just biding his time and waiting for the deal that he wants to. There might be a team out there that has to do some shuffling, and much like every team is doing right now. And I think he'll be just fine. But no, I'm not betting on him being back in a Kings uniform at all. And I think the Kings are okay with that.
I've also sold myself on the idea. No, I think they are too. I've also sold myself on the idea of the locker room all being together and working towards the same goal of just trying to win games, and there not being these ulterior motives or guys that don't want to be there and are kind of just counting down until they work their way out. And maybe if you brought DiVincenzo back, that they screwed the relationship so bad already that he would add this weird cloud to the locker room if he was unhappy. So maybe I'm kind of overstating that. That's
an overreaction.
Probably. Yeah. DiVincenzo seemed fine throughout last year, even when that was going on.
Every team is filled with dudes that think that they're not getting what they should and have. I mean, think of any workplace that you've ever been around, Brenden. The NBA locker room is no different. In fact, it's almost worse because you have a collective family, and most of them want to win, and they all understand it's a business, but they do compare themselves to everyone else. Every one of them in that room, because they're professional athletes, thinks that they're the best player on the planet, and that's the way you want them to feel. That's how out of touch with reality they will be, because that's how much they believe in themselves. So there's always people that are going to be that hard-headed, I got to get mine, I got to approve, I got to do this, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, you just hope it doesn't trickle over. And there are people who like to make, someone doesn't want to be here, they think the grass is greener elsewhere. Every team has that every single year, and even when that's present, it's not that big of a distraction unless someone really makes it a distraction to where, not checking into games. That's a little bit different. So,
yeah, and I'd point out too that the Kings picked up Chimezie Metu's. They guaranteed his money for this season. It wasn't an option. They had an option to waive him, but they either had to waive him or pick up his option by Thursday, and they picked up the option on Chimezie Metu. Chimezie Metu was very clear multiple times that he thinks he should have been playing more and that he should have a bigger role. So, I mean, you're going to run into that issue this season when he's your third power forward at this point. Because Trey Lyles was also brought back, and they drafted Keegan Murray, and all of a sudden you're looking at a guy who is going to have a tough time getting on the court at all. And I think he's going to be competing for minutes at both the 4 and the 5 just to get in speed lineups and stuff like that. But you look at the 5, and the Kings still have Sabonis. They still have still have Alex Len. They still have Rashawn Holmes. They still have Neemias Queta. Like this roster is still unbalanced completely. And then we come to Sasha, what is it, Vezenkov. There we go. Vezenkov. Vezenkov. There we go. Vezenkov. I had it written down last time. It's been a long week.
Put up some big numbers today.
Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah.
The
I think
next
he's excited. Yeah. I think he's really excited to come over. That's what I'm hearing. I talked to our friend Christos Saltos.
Hope he's well. Hope he's doing well.
Who? So if anyone ever listens to pre and post game, and you hear, "Hello, coach. I hope you're doing well," that is Christos. Christos is amazing.
He's got two questions always.
It's a two-part question, and they have nothing to do with each other at all.
And sometimes they've already been asked.
Yeah. But Christos, so people understand, he is in Greece on Zoom. And Greece, we've looked, is it 10 hours ahead?
Dude.
So most of the time when he's on a post-game call, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning where he's at. There's been times where he's on a call waiting, and you see the sun start to come up in like his back window. Like this dude
9
is
hours.
so dedicated. 9 hours. Okay. So I actually reached out to Christos, and we had some. We went back and forth on direct message, and he told me that the buyout for Sasha is $750,000, which falls within the window of what the Kings can actually pay. They can do his NBA buyout. I think this year they have either 800 or 850,000 that they could use to buy a player out of a European contract. So they can actually buy him out with no problem. He's 26, going on 27, 6'9", can shoot the ball, looks really fluid. I don't think he's a great defender. I think he's more fluid than Bjelica, but not as skilled as Bjelica. Bjelica really is an underrated skill player. But I think that there's a good chance he'll come over. And Christos told me that last summer, Sasha signed a 3-year, €2.7 million deal. So 2.7 million euro, that used to be like a lot in US, but it's not that much. So he only makes around 900,000 euros a year at this point. And so a league minimum deal in the NBA is $960,000. So it's possible that they can get him over on like a reasonable low-level contract. He's out. Well, it doesn't matter. He wasn't a first-round pick. But I was going to say he's outside of his window for the year he was drafted. So he can be signed for whatever amount the Kings want to sign him for. But the Kings only have what's left is either minimum contracts or the biannual exception, which is $4.1 million, which they can break up into multiple contracts. So they don't have to give him a full $4.1 million, if that makes sense. So just what are you guys' thoughts of him at being a potential fit here, especially after we just saw the Kings do what they did when it came to Chimezie, where they picked up that contract? That's where it kind of like confused me. Are you going to bring him over or are you not going to bring him over?
That's where it's confusing for me too, with Lyles picking up that option as well, and then fully guaranteeing Mezzi. It's like, where is the space for Vezenkov? I think he's a 4, not a 3. I think that Lyles and Mezzi both fall into that same definition, and I mean, you could make an argument that HB and Keegan Murray fall into that same definition. So I think that it gets a little bit complicated for where the role is. I would like to try Vezenkov. I'd rather see him than Chimezie Metu. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It's probably not going to be a difference maker or anything, but maybe I'm premature in saying this. I kind of feel like you know what you have in Mezzi and you know what you have in Trey Lyles, and maybe there's more with Vezenkov. Also, maybe I'm underselling Chimezie. He's still young. Maybe there's more there. But I personally would rather see him get an opportunity than what they've seen in Chimezie Metu. Like, Trey Lyles is okay as your backup 4, but I wouldn't mind them trying. And if they've really been eyeing him for an extended amount of time, and this wasn't just about the $1.75 million that they got in return for trading that pick, then if they like him, I'd like for it to be attempted and see what he has at the NBA level. But there would need to be more moves made that kind of round out the roster a little bit more, because you still need some actual wings rather than forwards in my mind.
Well, and also just it's July 1st, there's so much off season left. It's not a finished product. So I think I'll admit on draft day, things I was hearing was like, there's no chance this guy's coming over. Especially for year one, like maybe in 2023-24 season, maybe that's more of an option, and probably not. That obviously, seeing comments he's made has changed, as James has mentioned. But even on draft night, Monty having the confidence. Like he's talking about how he envisions a fit, and I was like, wow, this guy really is speaking as if this guy's going to be here, and I still wasn't getting that type of intel yet. But to hear it from the general manager was something else. So that was promising. But I also say, not only
bomb.
You guys see
Sorry
that?
to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Rudy
wow, how about
Gobert
that?
to Minnesota.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert to Minnesota.
Oh boy.
Oh,
So if you
D'Lo?
all saw the Brian Windhorst video that went popular viral today, when he was talking about why is Utah trading Royce O'Neal, and drawing the comparison of signing Will Hardy, much like the Celtics did with Brad Stevens to this long contract, and Danny Ainge, who was the GM there, now the GM back in Utah, and is Donovan Mitchell next? I mean, you're just giving away your pieces. So pretty interesting stuff there. But to go back to the point about Vezenkov, like I also think too, just looking at the roster, as I mentioned a minute ago, like this is not a finished product, but there's a lot of small. You mentioned Trey Lyles, you mentioned Chimezie Metu. Even if you are guaranteeing that money, it's not a lot of money, man. Like even Alex Len's not a lot. I mean, you can move these pieces, you can get rid of, you can just release them.
Yeah, you could stretch provision if you wanted to clear up some cap space, but
right. And even like you've got Keita, who's a two-way, and I know they like him, but shoot, man, you could maybe turn this guy into Vezenkov into two-way if you don't, however that turns out, exhibit 10s, all this stuff. But no, this guy's coming over and he's going to be a 26, 27-year-old player. And if he comes over this year, great. I think probably factors more into maybe later down the line, but I think it's encouraging if he comes over, and if he does, you just make it work. You've got pieces on your roster that they probably shouldn't have. It is a little bit wonky at the moment, so there's a lot of work to still be done.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work too. And I'll also point out that $1.75 million works out to a $750,000 NBA buyout and $1 million a year contract. Interesting. The math works. Okay, so I think we've covered all of the moves. The one thing, Damien Jones left via free agency, signed with the Lakers. Good for Damien. He's a very good dude. He deserves a spot in the league. I thought he actually should have been the Kings' number 2 option at center going into this offseason. And that retaining him would have been cheap, and you had to find a place for Rashawn Holmes. But at this point, I don't know. Matt George, our friend Matt George, tweeted out yesterday that he's hearing that there is no market for Rashawn Holmes, and the Kings will probably have to walk in season with him. I think that it's a little early for that. Right. I think it's an interesting statement, but I also think it's a little early, especially didn't Utah just trade their starting center and maybe doesn't have a starting center, and so maybe there wasn't a market yesterday, there is a market today. That you never know, especially with Utah's proclivity to like Harrison Barnes. Maybe there is some sort of weird package that makes sense where you get a player out of Utah. I don't know. I don't think the Kings are done. So that's going to get us to the business of basketball. Somehow my voice is held up all day. I'm not sure how that's possible.
You sound great, man.
I do keep testing positive in a very, very strong way. It's like someone took a Sharpie and keeps marking the line that shows up on your test. That's the bad line. If it were a pregnancy test, I would be very pregnant at this point.
Possibly with triplets.
But somehow my
with
voice
Kevin
is...
Huerter.
That's right. Yeah, there we go. I could have both a Dante DiVincenzo and a Kevin Huerter twins happening. Yes. But let's the business of basketball. How close are they to being done? Like, where do we go from here, and how much more action do you guys see?
They better not be done. I mean, it's July 1st. You better be involved in a lot of stuff. You ain't there yet. I think if the season were to start today, unfortunately it doesn't, because I'm not ready for that either. But I mean, I think I do feel like you've put together a better product already. You've addressed some needs, but you're still not better defensively. And you have the ability to probably be a little bit more entertaining. I don't know if it's a playoff team. there's no shoulds. Remember, guys, we don't like shoulds. So, well, Sean doesn't like shoulds.
You don't like shoulds, yeah.
I don't. That's all me.
You should,
but I'll see there. That's funny. But I will say, I don't know. I think that you're going to see a lot of tinkering. I think you're going to still see Sacramento attach themselves to a lot of conversations. And, man, I wonder if the Kevin Durant drama, sweepstakes, if you want to call it that, is going to play a factor, much like what happened with Ben Simmons and leading up to the trade deadline, and how everything just kind of got clogged with Ben Simmons. And if you're Brooklyn and you're moving off of Kevin Durant, and who knows what happens with Kyrie Irving, even though he's opted in, what does that mean for Ben Simmons? Are you going to do what Utah's doing and all of a sudden start just selling people off, or do you keep Ben Simmons and you keep the final thing the year with Kyrie and just go from there? A lot of question marks right now, for sure.
Oh, so you're saying they're getting Ben Simmons? I heard it right there.
I heard Kevin Durant. I don't know. One of the two.
There's a lot of drama going on here. Do we even know what's in this T-Wolves package
Yes,
yet?
it's not D'Lo. It's Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Balmero, and a bunch of first-round picks.
How many?
Just says multiple at the moment from Woj. So
I love
to not
Walker
include
Kessler
D'Lo
there.
is pretty crazy.
That's not that much.
No, it sounds like Utah rebuilding, retooling, whatever word you want to use.
Like if you're Minnesota, you're pretty thrilled with that. I mean,
yeah.
And Cat just got his extension, which was massive. So now you've got
they've been toying with putting another 5 alongside Cat and fully committed at this point.
We give you the Stifle Tower.
That's a lot of height right there. Okay, so as of right now, we have Fox and Mitchell at the point. We've got Huerter, Monk, Terrence Davis at the 2. We've got Barnes, maybe Terrence Davis at the 3. Maybe a little Huerter there. We've got Keegan Murray, Trey Lyles, and Chimezie Metu at the 4. We got Sabonis, Holmes, Len, Keita on a 2-way at the 5. Still unbalanced. Still probably need I don't know. Do you need a third point guard? You need more wing depth.
Another 3.
Yeah, another 3. So what do you guys think?
Did you put Ellis in there too?
Well, Ellis, Ellis is. Oh, we got to put him at the backup to the backup at the 2, 2-way player. Forgot about that. So I got them at 13 roster spots right now. That is without Sasha, so that would be 14, and then they have one more spot. Again, they're down to their. They can do minimum deals, or they've got a little bit. They can do a longer minimum deal because I think they left enough under Monk's. In the mid-level, they left enough under Monk's salary to actually sign a player to a longer-term deal there. I'm not sure if that happened or not, but that's where like a player like Keita could possibly get like a 4-year deal or something, or a 3-year deal with team options and stuff. I don't know. There's a bunch of things that could happen, or I guess that's where you could also fit Sasha. Do you think that they use the biannual? Do you think they go out and add one more free agent, or do you think that we're going to see a trade?
I would guess a trade. I mean, I think that
Both?
HB and Rashawn, maybe both. But I'm expecting one, if not both, of HB and Rashawn to be moved on from. I think that just kind of holding on to those guys and like waiting for better value would scare me a little bit, because I feel like we've seen that happen a few times, and maybe I guess it's worked out maybe better than I'm giving it credit for Monty kind of waiting for value for some of these guys. But yeah, I would still think that one of HB or Rashawn is moved on from.
This is going to be the kiss of death, because every year I've expected the Kings to trade Harrison Barnes, and I said I think that would even happen going into draft day, something like that. I all of a sudden don't think it's going to happen, unless maybe into the season. Now the reason I say that is just look at the team. He's arguably your best defender, one of your best defenders, easily your top 2 defender. So look at what you've just added. I could clearly see a world where Harrison Barnes is your is a starting player at the start of the season. And then, maybe you see what happens. Maybe you get to the deadline. Maybe something happens there as an expiring contract. But, yeah, man, I still wouldn't be surprised if they trade him. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's starting to look to me like they might keep him. I think they're fully capable. I think they're fully fine with keeping him. I think there's other places that don't make a lot of sense, like Alex Len. To me, that didn't make sense last year, so it doesn't make sense to me this year. Yeah, I think you probably need to move on from that one pretty quickly. But you'll see how it all kind of shakes out. And but I just don't think that, especially if you look at some of the deals that you may or may not be attached to, involving Alex Len and what's been reported out, or excuse me, with Harrison Barnes and what's been reported out there, some of those don't really make a lot of sense to me. I think Philly is intriguing, but again, there's a lot of things that are kind of happening in real time as we're recording this podcast. And now you've got, is Donovan Mitchell going to be a somebody that people can go get now? I know it's not a lot of size and 6'1" guard, but all of a sudden things are a lot more intriguing than they were a day ago.
Yeah, but Sean, you just gave up your first-round pick for the next 5 years.
Well, you did, but hey, you've got some. You can get attached to some deals. You can get thrown in there.
Yeah, go for it.
I got one other business basketball for you guys. Is today the day we're supposed to find out about the coaching staff, the previous assistants?
Well, today would be the day that I don't know that you'll find out about them, but the coaches from the previous regime have expired. And, some will be picked. Hopefully, I think Lindsey Harding will definitely be on this team. Mm-hmm. I don't think that Rico Hines will be. I don't think Jonah Hershku will be. But, we'll see how that shakes out. Sometimes, you'll get it to where the contract ends, and it might become August before they start. Oh, we'll bring them back. There's some time that could happen. Someone like Lindsey, I think, will be part of the summer league coaching staff as well. So I would think, I'm not so sure on that, but I would expect that to happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess too. Stacey Ogman won't be back, but
No.
not for sure. But I haven't done the calls on that. And then the other one is Mike Longobardi won't be back, from what I know. So so definitely some changeover there. Interesting. Okay. As far as do I think they're done? I don't think they're done. I think we're going to see more fireworks. I don't know what those will be, but it doesn't feel like this thing is set. It doesn't. And unless we're going to see something crazy like Harrison Barnes signed to a 3-year extension, I still think that there's a good possibility that he's not with this team at the beginning of the season. He hasn't been around like he has been in the past years. What's that?
All the picks.
Sorry. I'm just reacting to all the picks, James.
Oh man,
I'm sorry. That's a
2023, 2025, 2027 unprotected, and top 5 protected in 2029. I love that final protection in 2029, just in case.
Well, but what's the 2029 if it's not top? You can't trade past 7 years. So what is it? If it's top 5 protected, it's got to dissolve into a second-round pick or something. They can't extend out and trade for their picks. That's going to be weird.
The unprotected for 23, 25, and 27. That's it. Those are gone.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Oof.
No, but what I'm saying is that you can't trade your 2030 pick at this point. You can't
Correct.
trade out more than 7 years worth of NBA picks.
That's
so.
correct.
How do you trade a lottery protected a top 5 protected 2029? If not,
because
it
it'll
has
probably
to dissolve.
go to or it could be a top 3 or a top 2 in 2030, I should say.
No, you can't. You can't extend out.
Oh, you wouldn't be able to do. That's right. You wouldn't be able to extend it out.
Yeah, so it's got to. If it's either top 5 or it dissolves. Well, wow, that's crazy. It dissolves into a second round pick or something. That is absolutely crazy.
Would you have done that move?
Not for Gobert.
No, not with Sabonis. It might change the landscape of the West a little bit. Minnesota, I think you more comfortably put them in that top tier.
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe Utah falls significantly.
I wonder if Minnesota's. I mean, they were trying to trade D'Angelo Russell to begin with, right? I mean, they were definitely having conversations. Another name to kind of keep your eye out on is Jordan Clarkson. I mean, if Utah's just kind of pissing people away right now, that's another name that. I don't necessarily mean for the Kings, by the way. I'm just saying in terms of names that, that you might
Bojan.
Start to hear more about. Right.
Yeah, Bojan Bogdanovic, and I know Utah was in on John Collins for a while, but it sort of seemed like they're going a different direction at this point. That they're resetting. I don't know. Maybe they're not resetting. You trade away Rudy Gobert and you get all of that stuff.
Oh, dude, you're really resetting? Yes.
Yeah.
They just traded Royce O'Neal. Of course you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how does Donovan Mitchell feel about that?
Who cares? He's probably next.
Yeah, that's.
Ooh, Sean, shots fires.
I mean, I mean, again, I don't know if you guys saw the Windhorse video, but he's absolutely right. Like it was odd in the way he was talking. He's like, "What is Utah doing?" Danny Ainge is doing exactly what he did when he got to Boston. Buy KG, buy Paul Pierce. I mean, let me get all these picks. I've got a coach that I've got for 5 years. I mean, you got all these. He built Boston by doing the same way. He's doing it in Utah. He knows that his team. He takes over a team. Why do you think Quinn Snyder looks so relieved to get out of there? They had that odd press conference with the two GMs and him and the owner. Quinn Snyder, it's like, wish you well. You've been here for a long time. There's no way Quinn Snyder wanted to go through a rebuild. And that's what you're going through. And now it makes a lot more sense. Now, once you're trading Gobert and you're not bringing back anything other than Pat Beverly and picks, you're moving on. I don't know what they
probably move Beverly.
The Jared Vanderbilt disrespect is crazy.
I mean, hey, Pat Beverly, trade him to Sacramento.
Made the playoffs every year. He'll let us know about it.
Right.
Yeah, but you know who else made the playoffs? Corey Joseph made the playoffs every year too.
True.
Yeah. Sacramento has a way of destroying those streaks.
Awesome. I know we're wrapping up here. Can I give you this funny story from, I don't know if it's funny. It's something I remembered this morning. Malik Monk, Summer League in Vegas. And I remember checking out a couple of his games, mainly because I was trying to talk to him. Because obviously him and De'Aaron, and it's 2017, yeah? Rookie class? Did I get that right? Okay.
11th pick in the draft.
When you get to be my age, Brenden, I mean, James has already forgotten years, but you start losing your mind here a little bit.
Give me a decade, yeah.
But I remember going to talk to him, and I'm basically waiting him out because somebody's got like this conversation on the side, and I wanted to talk to him, and I'm stealing from their conversation, so I wish I could credit them. But one of them said, they asked him this question about nicknames, and at first, like, you know, Malik was just like, nah, some people call me by my middle name, which is Ahmad, sorry, and other people call me Leak. And he goes, but the one that I've always been, the one I've always liked the most was God of Dunk.
That's on his Basketball Reference page still.
God of Dunk. And I just remember, James is doing it right now. I remembered like my head tilted like a puppy when you hear something that they hear something they don't quite recognize, that is their ears perk up, and I'm like, dude, who calls you God of Dunk? Like, certainly, sir, you can dunk. And then I watched a game the next day, and he threw down in that game, and I'm like, all right, that's worthy of God of Dunk.
Kevin Huerter's nicknames, for what it's worth, Red Velvet, Red Mamba.
No, Red Velvet. No, it's Red Velvet. Yeah. The Red Mamba thing, yeah. No, that's not. That was, who was it? The Scalabrini, they called him Red Mamba,
White Mamba,
right?
The White Mamba, I think. I think that's what it was.
No, but Scalabrini, or maybe I'm thinking of, anyway. The one that is the best is Red Velvet, and they kind of smooth as velvet, and of course red.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They have Kayvon on there too.
What?
They have
the Kayvon.
Kayvon. Apparently, it's a Kevin Huerter nickname.
I will never call him that.
No, I don't think I will either.
Your story reminded me of the Hassan Whiteside story. Jason Wise, our friend from the Kings, from Kings.com, he did like a feature on Hassan. I think it was after his first season, or maybe it was like early in his second season, and he got in a car with him, and for like their entire drive, Hassan Whiteside named all of the nicknames for himself, and and there was like hundreds. He just kept saying all of, King of SWAT, like he had so many nicknames, and he just kept going and going. And Jason said I had like my camera rolling the whole time, like, this is absolutely crazy. He just keeps going. And I think they went to a fish store and like a pet store with Hassan, and he bought like some sort of giant fish for his fish tank while they were driving and naming nicknames. All of his
the two basketball reference.
Is it block side?
Yeah,
like he's got all
two basketball reference listed ones for Whiteside are Agent Block and Count Blockula.
Count Blockula. Yeah. 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 There I think there is a video of this somewhere where he, it's basically like Bubba naming all the different ways to use shrimp. It's sort of like that's from Forrest Gump.
I got that.
Forrest Gump is a movie with Tom Hanks, and
yeah.
And so we got to finish the show with this.
Oh yeah, what's next?
No, well, like we talked a little bit about Swingers, but you did that homework. Is there any other homework that you did?
I watched
How
Hustle.
did you not like it?
Swingers was
You watched
okay.
Hustle.
Like what was?
I don't think. Oh god damn it!
I also shout out to my friend, but I have a friend that's going through a heartbreak right now, so I'm more of like the friend that's helping somebody deal with it. So it's just like I don't know. I'm more of like, all right, dude, get up. Let's get over this. Come on.
You know what it is? Brenden doesn't live in an era where he had an answering machine. He doesn't live in an era where he had a cordless phone. He doesn't live in an era where, the swing kids were kind of a thing again.
Or an era where Swingers
Did
is
he
a good
have,
movie.
or where he had a cord on his phone? A corded phone. That's worse than a
Never
cordless
did.
phone.
He didn't play
Oh, man.
one of the best video games on Sega Genesis ever, which was that hockey game where you could make Gretzky's head bleed. I mean, my God, man.
Yeah, I
He
did really
and
like
he
didn't
Hustle.
play
probably
Tecmo Super Bowl.
Have you ever
Yeah.
been to Vegas?
Not since I've been
Jesus.
21, so
Which means you've never been to Vegas. Because if you're
Nope.
under 21 and you're in Vegas, it's not for you.
are you going to
can't
help
do
me out
anything.
at Summer League, Sean?
Are you going?
I am. First weekend.
Oh, how am I just learning about this
First
now?
weekend.
Brendan,
Yeah.
I am not going because I don't expect that I will have cleared protocol by then.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be on protocol forever. I've circled July 4th because that's our day on the water here, where we'll be out on the pontoon boat for 8 hours straight drinking and watching fireworks. And I don't know if I'm going to clear before Monday. I'm hoping.
Oh, you'll be fine. You're out of the infectious period by then, right? I'm not a
I think.
doctor, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've got to look at it. I think it's 7 days to be out of the infectious. Even if you still have symptoms, you're not infectious. So, but I still have it straight up, pretty good.
Well, I knew a dude that tested positive for over 6 months because he was what they call long hauler, but he wasn't infectious. So they say.
Only 5.5 months to go.
And he was a
James.
UFC fighter. This is Cody Garbrandt, former UFC bantamweight champion.
Oh yeah.
And again, that's what really frightened me because he's one of the most well-conditioned athletes on the planet, and I'm me.
Yeah, what are you trying to say, Sean? Am I not well conditioned?
We should be worried. It's no, man. You're
I'll tell you what. I blame it on one thing. My wife and I decided we were going to take a break from drinking, just randomly. We weren't going to drink for a week or two. I think that I took away my internal antiseptic and by not drinking, and so yeah, and now that's stretched out into I don't know 3 weeks. It's pretty good. Okay, so I guess we got to finish with this. California Classic starts on Saturday, which is tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I will not be going, of course, because I am not cleared to go. So you guys are both going?
Yep.
I will be there. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have stuff to talk
Possibly all
about on
3
Tuesday.
days.
Ugh.
Yeah.
We'll have stuff to talk about this week. All kinds of stuff because we're going to go straight from free agency, which won't end. I think we will see some more movement in the next 48 hours, 72 hours. We're going to go straight from that into Summer League and California Classic coverage and all that stuff. So we've got a ton of stuff to talk about here. We're not going anywhere. We apologize that James shut us down for a week almost. I like being concise on Tuesday and Thursday and getting you your pods, but life is what happens when you're making other plans.
What do we have in store for Brenden, his next assignment?
It's funny. I text Sean. I think that was Monday. I had already watched 65 hours of television. I binge watched all of the Hobbit's extended versions, all of Lord of the Rings extended versions.
James watched more TV in the last week than I have in my whole life.
Oh, totally. I probably have. I just binge watched some Hugh Laurie show called Chance on Hulu. I watched 2 seasons yesterday.
Brenden,
can it be Godfather? Because I need to check this one off already.
What?
Oh wow, that's an assignment because here's the thing. That's bullshit because you're gonna say I'm gonna watch Godfather.
Hey, the Wilcox kids could be listening,
Whoa,
Sean.
whoa.
I know that's BS because the
Good save.
Good say. Way to take it back, Sean.
Yeah, no, I almost said. You know what I was gonna say was I was gonna switch it to horse shit. So I'm saying for a guy
I watched
who can't,
Hustle in one sitting. I watched
It's an hour
Swingers
and a half,
in
bro.
one sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, that's an improvement.
But-
it's slow progress.
But Godfather, you can't just watch Godfather. You have to watch Godfather 2. So you're talking about 6 hours.
6 hours. Yeah. I actually watched
Well,
both of them 2 weeks ago. I
So
watched
do you
1
think
and
you?
2.
So Brenden, if you're saying so, because the one I was gonna give you is a 3-hour movie, almost 3-hour movie. If you take Godfather, that's fantastic. But I'm expecting you to at least be through one of them by next Friday.
Yeah, I got it. I can do one Godfather.
Can you do both of them?
I will promise you one and see if we can get to 2.
That, and then I just can't recommend it enough. The what's it called? The Offer. It's about the
Yeah, I gotta watch
Godfather.
that. I gotta watch
Holy cow! It is so good. It's 10 episodes. It goes by super fast. I highly recommend that. I think that is on Paramount. Yeah, it is on Paramount. Absolutely spectacular. It's about the making of how difficult it was to make the first Godfather and how the actual mob got involved in the actual making of the movie and how they stripped out words like mob out of the movie. Yeah, just absolutely spectacular show. So if you guys are out there and you need something to binge and you've already got through Stranger Things, which I probably will get through in
I've never seen Stranger Things.
the next 5 or 6 hours.
Wow, how dare you, Sean? You don't watch
dare
anything.
you, Sean.
What are you doing? God.
Isn't it scary?
Horseshit, Sean.
Oh, Jesus.
I will attempt to watch Stranger Things. I wanted it to finish up and then I would give it a go, but I haven't.
Well,
done
we're
it yet.
4 seasons. You can binge watch 4 seasons right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just played through. Okay, so I think. Do we have any final thoughts?
My only request on any future movies is that they're on one of the main streaming platforms. Because, I can't
let you
subscribe to
borrow
20
it.
different platforms.
I could have let you borrow it.
I don't
although
have
you-
a VHS, Sean.
It's not VHS, sir.
Yeah, I have the DVD hiding right here too.
Yeah, see? He's got every movie known to man.
Well,
do.
all of a sudden, now that I've seen it, that you guys mentioned this.
Yeah. I could basically run a video store out of my house. I could sell streaming passwords for a day and stuff like that, and just change. I've got 1,200 Blu-rays and DVDs. I have a couple of hundred VHS hiding in the basement.
James
somewhere.
also has a boat.
I
It's a private red box.
No, Sean, I have 2 boats. I don't know what you're talking
See,
about.
there it
Get it
is.
right.
Get it right.
Jeez.
Get it right, Sean.
Lives on a lake.
I live on a lake. But again, I've got the COVID, so at least you guys got that on me right now. All right. The Jazz gathered 6 first-round picks in the last 24 hours,
Is that
including Walker Kessler and the 22nd pick. Excuse
There
me.
he goes.
There he goes. We're running out of juice. All right. Final thoughts? Yeah, are we done with final thoughts?
I'm ready to overreact to Keon Ellis hitting 4 or 5 threes in one of these games.
Oh, yeah. See, that could be Tuesday overreactions
Yeah.
right there. What if Keegan Murray plays poorly? Tuesday overreactions. Oh, against Kuminga. Oh, that should be interesting.
And Wiseman
Oh no,
playing
Kuminga won't be there.
No, Wiseman.
Wiseman's not supposed to be a Cal
Not supposed
Classic,
to
I
be Cal
believe,
Classic,
but
yeah.
potentially Vegas. At some point, he might play basketball.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Is that
guess
a
no.
shot? Is that a shot right there?
Yeah, well, I mean, he just isn't playing basketball. I don't know what to say. It's just
Yep.
reality.
I'm gonna guess no.
No,
You don't think he's going to play in Vegas at all? Yeah, he's playing in Vegas.
Maybe. I don't know.
he'll be on the Nets when they trade him for KD.
I don't know. He's turning into Greg Oden 2.0, unfortunately.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I think Greg Oden played more games in his first 2 years.
Did he?
I think it's close.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to play on the Dynasty. Greg Oden wouldn't have sniffed the floor on a Dynasty.
Greg Oden would have been
Well,
the starting
last year he
center.
would've.
What are you talking
Last
about?
year. Last
If he
year
would have
he
been healthy as a rookie?
Last year.
Oh, that's a good topic of discussion for another day.
It is.
Okay, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the King's Beat podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry we were gone. We'll try to be here. Yeah, Sean's not. We'll try to be here going forward, but keep in mind that Cal Classic is on Tuesday, and things could get a little dicey as far as when we can record and stuff. And I'm not giving you my 4th of July. If I'm out of quarantine, I'm going to be out on a boat, and I will probably
Which
be
boat, James?
much redder. You don't
SS Ginger.
you don't bring out the speedboat on a day like the 4th of July because it's reckless out there. We'll be on the party barge, floating around and drinking and barbecuing. But everyone be safe on the 4th. Have a good weekend. This is a fun one, but be safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't do anything silly. And we will see you next week for 2 more episodes of the King's Beat podcast. Make sure if you're still watching, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, give us a rating and review, subscribe to the King's Beat, get a paid subscription, do all that stuff. That will make us all very happy. There is still a King's Beat 15% off code. I just haven't taken it down, which is irresponsible on me, but it's good for you, mainly because I'm sick. Also, if you did order anything recently, sorry, you're not going to get it until I clear quarantine because I'm not going to touch your stuff and put it in a bag and send it to you. As far as T-shirt stuff, I'm going to do the responsible thing, even if you have to wait an extra couple of days for your T-shirt stuff. Okay, so that's going to do it for this edition of the King's Beat podcast for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the King's Herald and the King's Pulse podcast. I am James Ham, King's Insider for ESPN 1320 and the King's Beat. See you very soon.